Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. Before we get started, a few things. First of all, if you like what we're talking about, go ahead and leave a like on the video down below. Also, while you're down there, you might as well hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. And according to the analytics, roughly 70% of you, 60 to 70% of you watching this video aren't subscribed to the channel. What's up with that? Also, please feel free to check out my Ko-fi page. There's a link to it in the description below. We're trying to build up a community of collectors to engage with each other, talk to each other, discuss this bizarre hobby of ours of collecting action figures and toys. It's a lot of fun, and I would really love to get to talk to a lot of you. Also, one other announcement that I have, I am going to be on a live stream on Toy DOMination this coming Thursday. That is January the 11th. There's going to be a panel. There's going to be about 4 of us all talking about G.I. Joe Classified series, which, you know, that's my #1 bag. Well, you know, if you've been subscribed to the channel, that's my #1 bag. I love the G.I. Joe line, not just the Classified series, but G.I. Joe in general. So I'm really excited to be on that live stream. I'm really excited to be discussing this with other collectors. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I've watched a lot of Toy DOMination's live streams, and they're just really good. It's a really good time. I'll leave a link to that channel down below as well and in the pinned comment. Go ahead and check that out, and I hope to see you there Thursday. Now, on to the reason that we're here. 2023 saw the birth of a lot of new action figure lines. Things like the Indiana Jones Adventure series, Jada Toys Mega Man series coming up at the tail end of the year, and even though they were revealed and announced in 2022, Super 7's Godzilla Ultimates didn't get into our grubby little hands until this past year, mid-2023. I believe it was mid-2023. I think it was like sometime in the summer, maybe the end of summer, beginning of fall. However, as the saying goes, in with the new, out with the old. And as new lines came in, old lines had to leave to make room for them on the shelves. Things like the Indiana Jones Adventure series, the Playmates Star Trek series that did not have a very long run at all, and I know was a big disappointment to a lot of collectors, and Power Rangers Lightning, RIP Power Rangers. Now, at the start of 2024, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of expectations for this hobby of ours, and there's a lot of thought put into it by the companies on how they can separate us, the collectors, from our hard-earned dollars to get pieces of plastic into our hands. And one of the prime ways of doing that is introducing new figure lines to get us excited, to build up hype, because both the companies and the collectors are always looking for that next big thing. That next thing that's going to get them excited, that next thing that's going to reignite their passion in this hobby. So what I have now is the 5 wish list figure lines for 2024. My top 5 wish list figure lines for the coming year. 5 figure lines that I would love to see somebody take a stab at, to see them get on the shelf, or even, you know, just online purchase, whatever. Just 5 figure lines that I really, really want to see at least a first wave to try to put these into production. And while we're talking about this, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what your 5 figure lines are, your 5 wish list, your top 5. Putting them in order is the hard part, but that is the fun part as well. So without further ado, let's get started. And here is my number 5.
What are you doing?
Killing monsters.
That's right, coming in at number 5 is The Witcher, specifically a line based off of The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, the video game by CD Projekt. And I know what you're thinking, but Mac, we've already received a figure line based off of that video game. And I say to you, calling what we received a figure line is being very generous. We have received a few figures for The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt. We've also received a few figures for The Witcher Netflix series. And from those 2 different versions of the same IP, we have received a total of 4 characters. Geralt, that we have received multiple versions of him for the video game and the Netflix series, and truthfully, the video game versions of him are basically just repaints. Siri, who we have received 2 versions of each video game and Netflix series, and once again, those 2 versions are just repaints. And then we received on the series side, Jaskier, who there were 2 versions of him, a standard and a chase figure, and the chase figure basically was just him with his mouth open singing. That should have just been a pack-in with the standard one, to be completely honest. And then on the video game side of things, we got Aridin Briot Glass, which I do like that figure. I like the look of him, I like the colors, but he's the leader of the Wild Hunt. We received no Wild Hunt. So giving the IP to a company that would do a deeper dive into the line, bringing out more characters, like Vesemir, for example, like Triss, the Kings, the other Witchers, the Sorceresses, 2 different versions of The Witcher, TV and video game, and there was no Yennefer. Seriously, how could you not include Yennefer? And then on top of the human characters, you have dwarves, you have elves, you have all of the monsters, all of the beasts. And to be fair, with the line that we've received so far, we have received some creatures, a total of 3. An ice giant, that there is a standard and a bloody version, a Kikimora, and a horse. And that's it. There is so much more to be mined out of this IP. There is so much more that could be done with this IP that I feel this has not been given a proper chance to thrive on the shelf. And I would just love to see somebody take the IP and really do something with it. Now, my top 2 ideas, my top 2 companies that come to mind when I'm talking about this is, first, Diamond Select. Especially after seeing what it looks like they're going to be doing with their House of the Dragon figures that are coming out, I think they could do a really good job with The Witcher, and I've kind of been pining for them to get the IP for probably about a year now. Another one that comes to mind, just because they've been doing so well with Dungeons & Dragons, is NECA. I think they could do something really good with this as well, and I would just love to see one of those 2 companies take a stab at this. No pun intended. Like for The Witcher, who do you think would be a good fit for that line? I'm leaning more towards Diamond Select than I am NECA, but that's just me. But I really feel like this is a line that deserves like a real shot at thriving, at expanding, at providing us with more than just Geralt and Ciri. And now number 4 is a totally personal choice, and that is yes, coming in at number 4, I have Metroid Prime. Now, this is something that I've been wanting for a while, mainly because I really like this video game series. I was really into this video game series when it came out. And as a matter of fact, with them remastering it and bringing it out on the Switch, that may, motivate me to pick up a Nintendo for the first time in years. That's how much I liked this franchise. That's how much I liked the Metroid Prime series. Now, admittedly, this may not have wide appeal, because every once in a while a Metroid figure will pop up here and there. It's always just Samus, and sometimes a Metroid to go with her as well. But we've never really dove into the line, into the franchise. We've never come out with anything more than just Samus in her armor and a Metroid. And that's a shame, because there's a lot, like with The Witcher, there's a lot that could be pulled out of this line. First of all, you have Samus in so many different suits. You have her in armor, you have her out of armor, you have her in different versions of armor. You have Dark Samus that would basically just be a repaint, but it would be a really cool repaint. So there's also, and then there's also the Space Pirates. There's the Federation Marines. There's the Chozo that you could do in plastic form, which would be really awesome. Then you have this giant cyborg space dragon named Ridley, and then all of the other little, creatures and monsters and space beasts that you could add into this. Now, admittedly, there's not a whole lot of human or even humanoid presence in this series. As a matter of fact, once you get past Samus, the Space Pirates, and the Federation Marines, I don't think there's much else there as far as like just standard figures go. So that may limit its run. That may not give the series, the line, very much as far as like legs go. But I think this would be a really fun, interesting line to dive into and take a look at. Once again, I know this is pretty much just my own personal preference. It's just me with my love of Metroid Prime. This may not have, you know, the broad appeal that you need a figure line to have to be successful. The only reason I didn't make this number 5 is because arguably, like we talked about, The Witcher, it's already had a line, and to me that kind of moved it down the scale a little bit. But coming in at number 4 is a series based off of Metroid Prime. I would really love to have a 6-inch armored Samus. And yes, I know there is one that's coming out. It's on pre-order right now, but that's from Metroid Dread. That's not our classic looking Samus. Number 3 also may have the same problem as Metroid Prime, and that is broad appeal.
Inhumanoids!
The Inhumanoids was a fantastic figure line from the 80s. The figures, I think, were originally like 7 or 8 inches tall. They were big, chunky figures with guys in power armor, exoskeletons. And then, of course, you had the 3 massive Inhumanoids, which was Moltar, Tendril, and Decompose. Which Decompose I'm still hunting down. I would love to get like a vintage Decompose to put on the shelf, add it to my collection. However, I don't know if many people remember this line, and the people that do remember this line, I don't know how they remember it, if they remember it fondly or not. It was very much a figure line, not to mention cartoon, that was steeped in horror, basically. Like, Decompose was called Decompose because he could turn people into zombies just by scratching them. It was fantastic. And he had this on-again, off-again obsession with the female hero of the line, where he would turn her into this giant zombie skeleton-headed bride of his. And it, for the 80s, for Saturday morning, or rather Sunday morning, sometimes cartoon, it was terrifying, but I loved it, and it was awesome. I don't know if this would have broad appeal, like I said, but I was also thinking that with the Inhumanoids, because it would be kind of a limited run, where you would basically have your 3 stars of the series, the 3 Inhumanoids, and then you would have, you know, the guys in their exosuits, which I can't remember right now what their team was called, but you had the guys in the exosuits, and then you had some other creatures, like you had these like sentient tree people, like treants or ents. And then you also had like this guy that was molten lava that could split into 2 different people. So there's not a whole lot to be bringing out with this line. So I was thinking what you could do, and let me know what you think of this idea. Instead of bringing it out as a more traditional line, you bring out the Inhumanoids, giant-sized HasLab figures, like they've done with Galactus or Giant Man, not Giant Man, because that's not going to have the same thing. Galactus or the Sentinel, where the main Inhumanoid, be it Moltar, Tendril, or Decompose, is the selling point. And the tiers that you unlock are the rest of the humans, the human team in their exosuits. I thought that might be one way to go. And I know there's the problem of, well, what if one sells and the other one doesn't sell? Then you don't get a complete team. But I really believe that if you do it this way, and enough people jump on board and back one Inhumanoid and get the team, if you do one Inhumanoid per year, they'll come back and they'll back the other Inhumanoids, because they're going to want the complete set. I mean, that's all there is to it. So it is a little bit of a risk, but I think it might be a way of getting the line into our hands without having to wait for it to go to the shelf. Because I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it would last on the shelf. And also, if it did, how would you do the Inhumanoid figures? Because you want the Inhumanoids to be huge, like Galactus or Sentinel scale huge. So that was why I had that idea pop into my head. Let me know what you think about that. Is it good? Is it bad? Who knows? Obviously, the team that would be working on this would be Hasbro, not just because of the HasLab, but because I'm pretty sure they own the Inhumanoids IP anyway. Now, we're getting down into our final two, and coming in at number 2 is one that I have been pining for years. You may have even heard me talking about it on this channel before. So without further ado, number 2.
Welcome to Dragon Training. Today you will learn to fight dragons.
Pain. Love it.
Let's get started.
How have we not had a line for How to Train Your Dragon yet? Now, I know what you're going to say. We did have one briefly that I believe it came out for the second movie. It was either the second movie or the third movie. No, I'm pretty sure it was the third movie because they all had their wingsuits. So we did have a line come out for The Hidden World, and that was by Spin Master, and it was good for what it was, but it was a very limited line. The characters were all in their dragon wingsuits. They didn't have their more traditional looks, and the dragons were nice, but they were very limited in what they could do. I mean, it was basically lined up as a basic figure line for children, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. We do need to bring out lines to bring young blood, fresh blood into the hobby for it to last. However, I have been pining for a really great line for How to Train Your Dragon for years. It is my favorite movie series. They are perfect movies with a perfect arc going from start to finish. It actually has a finish. It has an end. How many franchises now have a definitive end? And I know there's that new series on Netflix, but it's not really part of the story arc from the 3 movies and 2 TV specials, which I love that the TV specials were canonized too. But that's enough about that. There is so much potential with a figure line based off of How to Train Your Dragon. First of all, you have the Dragon Riders, and you have them at different stages in their life, different ages. You have them in different costumes, different face paints. They have their wingsuits, their fully covered wingsuits by the 3rd movie, that there's just so much potential for even just the riders themselves. But then in addition to that, you have all of the background characters. You have Stoic, you have Gobber, and Gobber could have a number of accessories to swap on his missing hand, which that would be fun too. You have people, you have the villains, okay? You got Drago and you got Grimmel from the 3rd movie. So you have the villains that you could put in there. You have Hiccup's mom. You have the parents that we've seen from the Dragon Riders. You have characters from the Race to the Edge series that you could bring into this. There is so much potential. And then on top of it all, there's freaking dragons. This line was designed with action figures in mind. How could it not be? There's so much here. There's so much potential. And I would love to see a line come out for this series. It doesn't even have to be 6-inch line. It could be scaled down to like 3 3/4 or maybe even 5 inches, just because of the dragons, so that we could get the dragons scaled properly for the figures. Now, there's a couple of companies that came to mind about this. The first one was Jada, once again, and the reason I was thinking of Jada is because some of the human characters, and some of the dragons admittedly, have really wonky proportions, like Stoic and Gobber and Fish Legs. So they've already shown that they can work with these exaggerated, these wonky proportions and make them really well articulated with the Mega Man line. For example, the Mega Man figures that have those big chunky legs, their legs can really pivot back. I don't have one to show you, but I've seen videos of them that they look really good, they articulate really well. And I think it would be interesting to see them tackle a line like this, especially because Jada in their action figures, they have two out right now, Street Fighter and Mega Man, and they're not like anchored into that 6-inch line expectation, because even though the Mega Man figures, I believe, are scaled at 1/12, they're not 6-inch figures. I think they're like 4 or 5 inches tall because of how squat Mega Man figures are. So it would be interesting to see them tackle it. Another company that I thought, and I know they haven't done any like licensed product yet, they may not even be looking at something like that, is actually Fresh Monkey Fiction. And I thought of them for the same reason as I thought of Jada, because with all of those, with those Santa Claus figures that they have, large, wonky, thick proportions, they did a really good job with the Santas with having articulation, maybe not double joints, but they still have decent articulation. They have great range of travel on those single jointed joints that they put on their figure. And I think it would be interesting to see them take a shot at it. Plus they have experience doing 4-inch figures. Granted, there's only like 5 POA on their 4-inch figures, but I feel like if they had something like this, they could totally like work in new articulation for those figures. This actually would have been my number one if it wasn't for the fact that number one occurred towards the end of 2023, my number one pick that sort of moved How to Train Your Dragon down. But before we get to that, let's talk about an honorable mention. The Conaissance is upon us, my friends, and the Robert E. Howard estate is really working on revitalizing and injecting new life into the Conan franchise, as well as other IPs that were developed by Robert E. Howard. Over the past year, we have seen a new comic series, we have seen a new novel, and we have seen new video games coming out for Conan the Barbarian. It only seems right that we would get a new figure line to go along with it. You have the obvious ones that you could put out there, Conan himself along with Valeria. You have ancient ancestors that you could include in the line like Krull the Conqueror. But more than that, the estate is also working on other IPs to bring out, which would let the action figures expand into this whole Robert E. Howard-averse, where we would have Solomon Kane and Dark Agnes, as well as numerous other characters that were created by Robert E. Howard. I don't know, once again, how broad of an appeal Conan has in the current zeitgeist. I don't know how popular he is. He has admittedly sort of been out of the public eye for a very, very long time. The only thing that I think even reinvigorated any interest and let the Robert E. Howard estate know that there was still interest in Conan was the short-lived Marvel Comics series before the estate took the rights back and started making their own comic for him. And now that takes us to my number one. If you haven't watched Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix, why not? It is engaging, it is beautiful to look at, it is very well written, it is smartly told, it is a smartly told story. The characters are memorable, they stand out, they all have distinct personalities, they all have distinct motivations, they all have distinct reasons for doing the things that they do, not just in the broad scope, but even in like small character moments that are peppered throughout the show. I have watched it, I'm probably on my third watch through right now since it first came out. And the reason I haven't completed a third watch through is because I'm watching it with Uncle Britt, and he comes over every once in a while and we watch another episode because I'm getting him sucked into this too. This show is fantastic. And as soon as I finished watching like even the third episode, the first time through, I said to myself, I need a figure line to go along with this. The costumes are so colorful. The characters all stand out. The characters all have their own unique looks. And some of them even have numerous different looks for them. Like Akemi, the princess, you could have 2 different head sculpts with her. One where her hair is down and her teeth are white, and one where her hair is up and her teeth are blacked out. And if you want to know why her teeth are blacked out and you don't know why, watch the show. I'm not going to spoil anything right here, but there are just so many figures. There are just so many characters. There are so many possibilities for this. And granted, it's all going to be basically human characters. There's no true monsters in this, but even the villains of this, the villains stand out. The 4 fangs would be awesome in figure form with the armor, especially with the mask. That would just look fantastic. They would have a presence on the shelf. They would be intimidating. I just think this series just begs to have figures made of it. They would look fantastic. They would have to be so well sculpted to like do justice to the show. There's the possibility for so many different accessories and weapons with each figure. Even Ringo, man, you could like have a little bell on an elastic band that you could like pop on and off of his ankle. That would be actually funny. I think that would be a really cool addition, a really cool accessory for that character. And as far as, let me scroll down on my notes here, as far as like who would do it, I honestly had a really hard time trying to think who would be able to do this line. My first thought immediately went to Import, immediately went to Bandai, but those would be a little pricey, I feel, and we would get them very sporadically, very spread out. However, if they're going to be pricey, that's probably the better way to go. But then I was thinking about Fwoosh Toys, and I was thinking about their articulated icons and their ninjas that they came out with, and now they're re-releasing the ninjas at a lower price point, and that they're doing the Ninja Scroll figures, and the one shots that we've seen of those figures so far, I think look really good. So they were a possibility that popped into my head too. Briefly, I thought of Loose Collector, but I pushed that out of my head very quickly. But for something, if you know Blue Eye Samurai, if you've seen the series, if you know what I'm talking about, if you know the quality of figure that you would need to do that line justice, yes, I'm totally fanboying here. Who do you think would be a good pick for that? I didn't want to go to Hasbro because I feel like whenever Hasbro starts playing around with something that's not an immediate hit, and I don't think Blue Eye would be an immediate hit because I don't think enough people have watched it for there to be this huge rush coming out whenever the line would hit the shelves. I feel like they would do like half of a first wave, see it's not making them a gajillion dollars, and then shelving the whole project. Fortnite. So that's kind of where I'm at there. I don't know who would be like the perfect fit. My top two ideas are Bandai and Fwoosh. I didn't want to go to Jada because I think this might be a little outside of Jada's ballpark for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't want to like put Jada on the list one more time for being such a new company. But let me know, who do you think would be really good at doing Blue Eye Samurai? Because I'm genuinely curious who you would match up with that IP. And that, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, is my top 5 2024 wish list for action figure lines. Let me know in the comments below what your top 5 wish list is. Go ahead and put them in order. Like I said, putting them in order is the hard part, but it is the fun part. So until next time, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.